In programming, decision-making is an essential part of program flow, especially when the program needs to choose one of several paths for execution. Solidity, like any other programming language, uses conditional statements to implement decision-making. With conditionals, your contract can execute a piece of code only when a certain condition is true. This is how you make your smart contracts react differently to different inputs and states. Solidity provides conditional statements such as the if statement, the if-else statement, and else if for handling multiple conditions. The if statement is the simplest one. It runs a block of code only if a condition is true. If the condition is false, that block is simply skipped. The expression inside the parentheses must evaluate to a Boolean value, either true or false. If it's true, the code inside the curly braces runs. If it's false, execution jumps to the next line after the closing brace. Sometimes you don't just want to decide, do something, or skip it. You want to choose between two different paths. That's where if-else comes in. One block runs when the condition is true, and a different block runs when it's false. If the condition is true, the first block executes. If it's false, the else block runs instead. Let's look at a practical example. Suppose you have a contract that manages user balances, and you want to check if a user has enough balance before allowing a transfer. Here, the statement checks if the sender has enough balance. If they do, the transfer happens. If they don't, you would typically revert the transaction using a statement like require. In practice, Solidity developers often use require for validations since it automatically reverts the transaction when a condition is not met. You can also chain multiple conditions together. For example, you might want to check more than one thing before you allow the transfer. This example shows how you can check multiple conditions. Both conditions must be true for the first block to execute. When writing conditions, you'll often combine simple checks using logical operators. The main ones are and, or, and not. These operators allow you to combine multiple conditions into a single expression. You can also nest conditional statements inside each other. This lets you express more complex decisions, where one check depends on another. Nested conditionals can become hard to read if you go too deep, so use them carefully. Sometimes it's better to use multiple separate if statements or to simplify your logic instead of nesting several levels. In smart contracts, conditionals are often used for access control, validations, and enforcing rules before updating the contract's state. They let your contracts make decisions based on the current state and on the inputs they receive. The simple if statement handles basic true-false checks, while if-else lets you pick between two different branches. By combining these with logical operators, you can build richer decision-making logic. Just remember to keep your conditions clear and not overly complicated so your code stays readable and maintainable. They're one of the core tools for controlling how your smart contracts behave.